Hey, everybody. How's it going? All right. Good to see everybody again.
You want to kick us off, Dave? Did you have a question?
Oh, I actually do, but I didn't know.
Go ahead.
Oh, David Moore.
No.
Okay, so John, Dave Bluffler, Cowboys Radio. Anger obviously having such a great year, and you green light him to go ahead and knock the heck out of it. We'll go cover it. Your gunners have been so good even after losing CJ. Is that a big part of allowing him the ability, to hit the 55, 60-yard punts because you can cover it, as opposed to saying, hey, just flip it, get 40, don't fair catch it. Here we go.
I think a big part of letting a punter punt it is your confidence in the gunners for sure. And losing CJ, you've alluded to a couple of times. We use Sam, Nashawn Wright has stepped up, Jalen Tolbert, and Jalen Brooks kind of have been our go-to four. And it's been an interesting mix because on the sideline, there's not like a designated guy. It's kind of, a feel for how much JT's playing on offense, how much Sam's playing on defense. And so it's kind of like, hey, who wants this one? And every time four of them want it. So we kind of have to say, okay, Sammy, you take this one, and, Nashawn, you take this one. So in a way, it's kind of cool. You like to have two just staples, but it's also nice to have a couple extra bodies with, some willingness amongst all of them. But I'm proud of the guys that they're doing it now because they didn't get a lot of work early, and they've been asked to do it lately, even though we haven't punted that much, especially last game.
My follow-up, does Brian get paid?
For a holding, man, you better hold his you-know-what offered in that game. Yeah, that was, I've never been a part of that game. It was horrible and wonderful all the same. It's like, first down, yes. But at some point, it's like, can we get, keep the guys warmed up, get a little work?
For me, I'm sitting there going, I don't think they punted. Did it take you a while? I know you're not.
Yeah, it was maybe like end of the third quarter, and I turned to my assistant, Coach Stewart, who's fantastic, by the way, and we're like, we haven't had a punt return this game. Punt return, too. It was like middle of the fourth quarter, and we had a couple of punt return alerts, and we had basically one call. We were going to run the whole game just because we hadn't got anything, and by the end of the game, I said, hey, great call on punt return, man. It would have been great, but nothing, anyways.
Michael Gelkin, Dallas Morning News, on the topic of gunners. A couple games ago, Sam Williams had a rep, I believe against the Commanders, where he was basically just bull rushing the double team for like 15 yards.
Yep.
Is that unique? The way how does his strength allow him to be maybe a little unique in terms of the way he takes on double teams at that position?
Yeah, for sure. They brought a double team over to him, and he had one either that game or the game before. Where it was the game before, it was Carolina, where he outside released. He did a great job of using the sideline and re-entering legally. And we talked about it, and one of the other options was to stretch and split. And so he took a little bit of a jab step to go speed, but then the guy played it pretty good, so he just instinctively split it. And, he's going against two smaller guys, but one of Sammy's strength is his strength. He is strong. And so he kind of just fought through both of them, and after about 15 yards, freed himself up, which smaller bodies couldn't do that. Jalen Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, and Sean, you got to use a little bit of a different technique than just bull rushing through a split, But Sammy can do it. Then he ended up making a great tackle, just a little bit high. That was when he got the face mask on. But just fantastic release. Especially a guy that we didn't start training as a gunner until mid-season. So pretty cool stuff.
On Sam, staying on him real quick. I believe it was a Carolina game where he and Wanye, you might actually want to answer this question, but they flip-flop A-gaps before in punt rush.
Yep.
What sort of stress are you looking to create there on a protection unit when those two flip gaps?
Yeah, there's schematics to it, whether it's trying to influence which way the snapper goes or who the PP is looking at or, a gap you're trying to hit that you feel like you can penetrate. So there was just some preemptive things that we were going to do based on that. So it was planned for sure what they were doing. And they're just game within a game a lot of times on the punt rushes. But Sam's good at that too. Man, he's strong. He gives us fits on our punt when he's on the scout punt return side. So he's done a lot of good work for us.
On Archer with ESPN, you told us before about you'd gone to Brandon and said, be honest with me, tell me how you're feeling. You alter his routine now as you're later in the year at all to even if he is being honest with you, you still need to, because he's coming from one season into another.
Yeah, for sure. I'm starting to wonder, honestly, if he's being honest with me, because he's always said he's good, and I just don't believe it. Brandon, if you're listening, I'm on to you. No, but he taking care of himself so great. Gosh, he's not a rookie. Let's face it. You know, he's a true pro. But you guys maybe I don't know the answer to this, but I don't think anybody's kicked off in the league more than he has this year. And I don't know if anybody's hit more field goals or PATs combined than he has this year. I mean, he has swung a lot. So I'm definitely going to look at his workload on Wednesday, Thursday. Those are the only days of the week that he's kicked. So we'll look at, Wednesday if we can scale him back a little bit. But you also, you don't want to necessarily change the routine because it's kind of working. So it's like, gosh, do we scale back and hope the production continues, or do we scale back and get benefits of it, later down the road? So that'll be something that myself, Coach Stewart, and Brian Anger will talk about. I really rely on Brian a lot for, feedback on how Brandon's doing. Because Brandon will tell me, but sometimes I'll ask Trent, hey, tell me how Brian's doing, And they probably all lie, which I get it, because I did too when I was a player. I didn't tell my coach I'm not feeling good.
With Brandon and the PATs, I mean, it's nitpicking maybe at this point, because those are the only kicks that he's missed.
Yeah.
Any commonality between the misses that he's had in those?
No, two of them. One of the Giants was, his first time on a quick change. And then the next time he missed one on a 2-minute warning, I believe it was, where he was out there for a long time. When I should have had him come over to the net and hit one. And then the most recent one he missed, he just towed it. He just missed it. But PATs aren't like they used to be. They're 33-yard field goals, and we've hit a lot of field goals that are 31-yarder, and so there's no commonality except for the first two. We're kind of unique to the PAT, the sudden change, and then a 2-minute warning. No, it was a review. It wasn't the 2-minute warning. It was an extended review where he's kind of sitting out there for a long time. So, no, he's doing good.
Calvin Watkins, Dallas Morning News. Special teams groups have had a lot of changes, injuries, and those kinds of things. At this time of year, historically, bearing an injury, are these units kind of stable right now in December and those kinds of things?
I think so. Yeah, barring injury. We have early in the season we had guys run out of practice squad elevations, and so there's some turnover, but that's kind of stopped. So I feel like with our health, there should be some continuity, that we've had the last couple of weeks, even though we haven't had a lot of work the last couple of weeks. Washington, there wasn't a lot of work. And then definitely last week was the least I've ever been a part of. So hopefully we'll get some chemistry and continuity over the next 5+ games. But football is going to happen, so I feel fantastic about our practice squad. I remember last year we had Wanya Thomas on our practice squad, and nobody really knew about him. And so I feel that way this year. There's a couple guys on our practice squad that nobody probably knows about that are being, working very hard, being trained really well on the scout team side for now or later.
John?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. How do you draw that balance where you ain't got a lot of work the last 2 weeks, and you want to get a little bit more work in practice, and you said about you want to wear out Brandon in a sense.
Yeah, we're the point in the season too where our meeting time and practice time is kind of scaling back. So it's a tough one. We want to get the work for the young guys and continue to keep our edge sharp, but the way it should be done is to scale back a little bit. So we'll be all right. I'm excited about the young guys, and even though we haven't had a lot of work in the games, we've had just as much work in practice. And I'm proud of our meeting habits and practice habits. Early in the season, to be honest with you, it was, I think it was week 3. I got on there a little bit, and then I think it's been really sharp since then, especially for a young group. Just being real intentional on the practice field because we don't get a lot of work on game day. So.
Christy Scales, Cowboys Radio. In regards to that limited work on the practice field, when you get to December, do you have to redistribute some of that time and maybe focus more on kickoffs, because in the December weather and these outdoor games, there might be more opportunities for returns and coverage?
Yeah, I think, Chrissy, it's a good question, and maybe my fault, or I could be very wrong, but we've spent the same amount of time as we always have on kickoff and kickoff return, even though there's been very limited work on it. So I don't feel like we need to add more to it because we probably do more than we should anyways on it. And I don't see us changing. We have a certain amount of time we spend on punt and punt return, which is a little more than kickoff return. But I feel really good about the time invested in kickoff and kickoff return in meetings and practice. So I don't feel like we need to emphasize it more or practice it more because now the ball might be coming to life a little bit more. Arguably so, but
Follow up on that. Earlier, Dan Quinn was telling us that with these trimesters and the 6 games,
Yep.
that he has what he calls work-ons, right? So
Yep.
as a unit. So do you have something similar? And then if so, what is the work-on heading into this final?
yeah, I think, Coach Quinn, I think we all have something for our guys to work on, whether it's individual player or as a group. And for us, our work on is kickoff return. Not to necessarily add more time to it, but how do we simulate the best we can in practice, a real rep, which you can't do. But I think what we can do, and we've talked about it, my assistant and myself, is to spend more time maybe walking through stuff during our meeting time than maybe even watching film or going over personnel or even schematics. Because let's face it, there's not as many new inventions on special teams happening right now with us or with other teams, because you kind of start to get into your bread and butter, so you can maybe focus more on that instead of new schematics. So the to work-ons is maybe just to keep the fundamentals going, which you haven't had a lot of chance to prove over the last couple of weeks. Tough one, yeah.
John Machado with The Athletic. This isn't a special teams question, but I'm just wondering your time now with the Cowboys. Obviously, you guys have faced the Eagles quite a few times. Is there anything that stands out to you about that rivalry, Cowboys versus Eagles?
Yeah, I go back, my dad was coaching. There were some great games against the Eagles when he was with the Giants that I remember. Being on the sideline for and in the old Veterans Stadium. So I am very familiar with the rivalry, not necessarily Cowboys-Eagles, but just whoever versus the Eagles. And it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. I remember it was my dad's very first game, if I can just go personal again for a second, which I seem to always veer towards that. I think it was my dad's first game as an NFL head coach was Giants versus the Eagles. You guys can maybe check me on this. And it was on his birthday, was the game day, August 31st, 1997. My wife always gets me on this. You can't remember 4 things at the grocery store, but you can remember a game 24 years ago. So I'm calling it out. Check me on it. August 31st, 1997. Giants are up by 7. Sam Garnes returns the interception for a touchdown to basically seal the game. And then I remember a couple years later, the Giants beat the Eagles in the regular season 1. They beat the Eagles in regular season 2. Then they had them in the wild card round. Whatever, that might have been 2001. And I remember how nervous my dad was. He was like, gosh, we beat this team twice, but they're so good. And we got them in the first round, and we got a home game, and we turned the opening kickoff for a touchdown and beat them, I think, by 7. I think it might have been Andy Reid's team, if I can't remember. So I'm going off on a tangent. I can't remember really what you asked, but just
Eagles.
Cowboys, Eagles. Yeah, I mean, I'm a football fan first and foremost, so I love the Cowboys, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, Cowboys, Commanders,
But like when you're on
Steelers,
the field
Cowboys.
level, like, do you notice anything different with the hitting or just how familiar the two teams are with each other? Is there anything that like stands out that you're like, yeah, I know this is Cowboys, Eagles right now?
Probably not, to be honest with you. Every game feels like it's fast and hard hitting and it's not stressful, but it's But I do catch myself sometimes, and I was thinking about this past game. It was middle of the third quarter, and I'm right on the line, and I'm thinking to myself, this is awesome. Like, I get a front row seat at an NFL football game. Like, look what's happening. So sometimes I do go there, to be honest with you. But all the games are pretty special.
Sagis with The Athletic. John, what are your general thoughts on icing the kicker? And a while back it kind of became popular. Now you kind of see it now and then. How do you view it on the opposite side, or even for your own guy and things like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think you could absolutely make a case both ways. Ice him to ice him, but I'd love to see the statistics, and I bet it's pretty close to 50-50 on, a lot of times you see, you call a timeout and he kicks the ball and he misses it. Then you load it back up and you make it. Like, we shouldn't have iced him. I think there's merit to icing him if you can time it up where they kick it, because they probably just kicked K-ball number 1, which is the best scrub ball. So now they're funneling in K-ball number 2, which is the second best K-ball. So if you can make them kick their best K-ball and reload it, then you probably have an advantage. But sometimes, I ask kickers, would you rather kick it or would you rather be iced? And some of them would rather be iced just to take their time, get a swing at it, go back into the net, come back out. But I think it probably depends on the situation. If it was more of like a kind of a hurry up or the play clock's ticking, I think you just let it ride and give yourself a chance and see if you can block it or see if he misses it. I don't think I have an answer for you necessarily on exactly what I would do.
With Brandon, is that something you have practiced at all, or is that something that is training camp or practices that you guys go
We practice it every Wednesday. It's 4 seconds left, end of half into game, and I'll have a whistle, and sometimes I won't blow it, and we got to get off and kick it, and sometimes I'll blow it right before we snap it, and we got to go through the whole process again and reload it. So that's part of our Wednesday situational kick-in that we're working on with Brandon. And I don't think the best part is I don't think Brandon has a preference either, which sometimes is nice, with the innocence of not really caring or knowing. There's a lot of good in that. Like, whatever, Coach. Hey.
I did see a stat on that, like a year ago. You actually make more kicks after they try.
After the icing? Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
You get a free kick, get a little nerves out, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You actually make more.
Yeah, I believe it.
Justin Barnes, Pro Football Network. Coach, can you talk about Wanye Thomas? You just mentioned him, but what specifically of his game has grown the past 2 trimesters, if you will, of this season, and what do you expect from him going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. Wanye is our personal protector on punt, which, let's face it, is the quarterback position of all of the special teams. So that's the number one. And his command and leadership of the punt team has grown as his reps have gone up on defense and on special teams. So he's a great communicator. He's fantastic in the meetings. He's bright. He asks questions. He's always attentive. He pushes the teammates. He gets them excited. There's just a great leadership quality about Wanye. And I told Wanye, you don't have to have experience to be a leader. It's about your production at practice and on the game field to have people look up to you as a leader. And I'm really proud of him. Really proud of him. He stayed healthy. He's got some cool things going on with his family. And I expect him to get better for sure.
Finish up with Michael.
On the subject
I want to mention one thing to you, too, after you go ahead, Michael.
On the subject of how some kickers might prefer to be ice and others might not, when you're scouting a guy coming out, is that something, or even having guys in free agency visits, is that something you can ask each guy you engage with and then kind of file away for the event that you might face that kicker down the road?
Yeah, I know when we go to the combine, we ask those questions of the kickers. I think you're going to get a pretty canned answer. So I think you go to the tape and you see, what it looks like. And then you kind of get a feel for a personality, if a guy is a little bit tense or a guy's kind of just a little bit, So I think you kind of get your own instincts on a player rather than, asking them because they're going to know what to say. But the proof is definitely in the tape. And you can tell, in certain situations how guys respond for sure.
Thank you.
Did you ask me a couple weeks ago about players that had come from undrafted? That was you, yeah.
They kind of make plays, you should root for them, and
Yeah.
when they kind of turn it off.
So you got me thinking about it because I left you thinking, gosh, I wish I had a better answer for that. So I came up with the places I've been, who we got as undrafted, and what they became. So when I was in Baltimore as the assistant special teams coach, we got Bart Scott as the undrafted free agent. He played special teams for a couple of years, and then one of our linebackers got hurt, and then he became a starting linebacker. Then I went to the Oakland Raiders. We got a guy named Marcel Reese as an undrafted, basically receiver from University of Washington. We converted to a fullback. He was on the practice squad for 2 years, and he should have played, and he was always like, Coach. I'm like, I know, just, hang in there. And he ended up making, I think, 4 or 5 Pro Bowls as a fullback. Then I went to the St. Louis Rams, and we got Rodney McLeod, undrafted safety out of Virginia, and he was special teams only for about 2.5 years. And then one of our safeties, I think it was Quentin Michael, got hurt, and Rodney started, and he's still playing. He's 12 years in the league. He's still playing. Then I went to the L.A. Rams, and I told you about Corey Littleton. We got him undrafted linebacker out of Washington, about 2.5 years on special teams. And then Mark Barron got hurt, and so he became a starter, made the Pro Bowl. And then we're writing some good stories right now about some Cowboys that are undrafted that are going to become Pro Bowlers. Who knows who that'll be? There's some candidates.
Yeah, quick,
There's Terp, yeah.
quick
Yeah,
follow-up to that.
good call.
Is there a commonality between those guys that you've seen?
Yeah, so thinking of every single one of those guys, I mean, they were tough. And they're all different builds. Bart Scott was a strong linebacker. Marcel Reese was a big receiver, but not really a receiver, so he got converted. So he's very versatile. Rodney McLeod is a smaller body, but tough as nails. Corey Littleton, versatile, but tough as nails. So I think the commonality would be a versatility and just toughness. Clearly guys that got hunger that some other guys don't, But based on sizes, it didn't really matter. It was, man, those guys were tough, and they were very valuable because their versatility put them on the field as rookies, even though they were undrafted.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's good. Thanks for the question. All right.